A lot of things said here. What's happening, film friends? Dave the Film Junkie here. All right, guys. Finally getting around to this. And I apologize. It seems like I'm always behind on things. When did this come out? January 6th. What the fuck? Okay, but people just started talking about this probably like, what, not even a week ago or something like that? But it's just, it's crazy how far back. But I get that. Sometimes this shit happens where, you know, normal people, you know, the fandom and even sites don't really like tap into this. But this was circulating last week about this Fire and Water podcast. I thought it was Fire and Ice for some reason. I don't know why. I just thought, you know, the opposite. But you got host Mr. Rob here, and it's episode number 223, where they talk about Aquaman yet again, because they already talked about it in a previous podcast, but they invite the Daly brothers on, Ryan and Neil. And basically Neil has started dropping a bunch of knowledge, and basically what he is he handles, when it came to DC film stuff, Warner Brothers, actually more Warner Brothers stuff. It wasn't just DC films, because he mentions Blade Runner 2049. He talks about how he handles, you know, test screenings and, you know, focus groups and everything, just to report back to the studio. He talks about how sometimes he gets blamed for shit and it's not his fault. It's interesting. One thing about this podcast, these guys, very critical about a lot of movies. I mean, sometimes it irks me when people are so overly critical about every little thing. You know, that fucking asshole friend that you just can't go to the movies with because he'll rip it apart on the way home. And they say a lot of critical things here. You know, they didn't like Batman or Superman or Justice League or anything. I think they did mention something good about Man of Steel, but for the most part, they criticize, you know, Snyder. The big thing was, and the big thing I took away from this podcast, and if you listen to it, maybe you'll hear it too, is they were critical about how Snyder chose Aquaman, and they even mention in here that they're like, oh yeah, they wanted to make, you know, Aquaman something different, you know, not be a joke, and I don't think they really cared. They were just like, hey, let's do something the polar opposite of Aquaman, and it'll work. The way they said that was just very, I don't know. I didn't like it. It was sleazy. I didn't like it, but one of them, I forgot which one, does say that after seeing Jason Momoa as Aquaman, he totally thinks Jason Momoa can only play Aquaman, and that's how good he fucking did, and that really shows. I mean, it showed in, even with Justice League and some of the shitty, you know, stuff, whatever, but it really showed in Aquaman. I mean, he really did lead that movie, and he was so charismatic, and it just worked. It really worked. So here we go, guys. I made like a bunch of bullet point notes, but pretty much that's what that was. My first note was Warner Brothers and Snyder had zero faith in Aquaman that they felt, so that's why they cast Arthur. But, you know, we know how Snyder is. Snyder wanted to do something unique and different. You could always tell with the casting, and that's why he saw something in Momoa, and guess what? It worked! Batman and Superman were rated lowest. When they did the focus group stuff, and they did, you know, had people rate the characters in Justice League, when they did Justice League, apparently Batman and Superman rated the lowest. Aquaman was behind Wonder Woman. She was first, Aquaman was second, and people were actually apparently really wanting a Flash movie more than anything after the Justice League you know, after watching that and getting all the feedback from that. So come on, Warner Brothers. Arthur saves Clark, you know, Man of Steel. They talk about that. I guess I was in the whole idea at first, but hey, you kind of see it. It's still a reference to it in Aquaman that we have now. He talks about the 5 to 6 movie arc that Snyder was trying to do, but he also said it included Man of Steel 2. I didn't hear Man of Steel 2. I just heard 5 parts, but maybe that was thrown around and everything. Had Snyder been not pulled, yeah, that's the note I made, because basically what they talk about is, when it came to Justice League, you know, when he talks about the arc, the movie arc, you know, everybody was wanting like the Boy Scout Superman, the Superman that were recognized, but Snyder wanted to take his time because he was giving us a Superman of, hey, should I save these people? A lot of them are assholes. And if we would have waited, hey, guess what? We would have gotten that. We already knew that. And yeah, people just want instant gratification nowadays. Fucking sucks. That's what's really plaguing a lot of this shit now. I know a lot of people want to point the blame at either studios or this, that, and this. Start blaming the people. He also talks about how Snyder wanted individual solo movies and how Warner Brothers just wanted to play catch up. And this is actually, I think this is kind of true. I didn't hear exactly that about him wanting the individual movies. He just wanted for the sequel to Man of Steel to be, hey, how about he takes on Batman like The Dark Knight Returns? And what I heard too is the little cameos from the other Justice League members wasn't originally the plan, but Warner Brothers started pressing and going, hey, we need to start doing Justice League. So then Snyder went, okay, Snyder, Goyer, Tara, they started going, okay, we got to start setting it up. So they put those cameos in there to set up Justice League. And then we didn't even get the Justice League that he fucking wanted. He also mentions how, with the Mother Box and the Steppenwolf fight, that Vulko does state in Justice League, in Snyder's version, that this wasn't Atlantis, it was an outpost, which I guess caused people to be really confused when they saw Justice League. They thought, wait, hasn't Arthur been to Atlantis? But yeah, they snip that shit. Whedon redid about 50% of the movie, which we pretty much saw, and yeah, we pushed against it when we heard that rumor, but turns out, yep, it was true, and Darkseid was the villain, which we were suspecting after all this concept art was coming out, that maybe that was who this was all about. It wasn't really about Steppenwolf. Maybe Steppenwolf was part of it, but the history lesson, I'm fucking sure it was Uxie's, I can never say the names right. Ares was apparently in that history lesson too, although he does say in the history lesson that it was at the beginning of the film, which I go, man, I don't know about that. That's not what I heard. But I'm wondering that when they started doing testing, later on, when Whedon came in to start reshaping things, I'm wondering if they placed the history lesson in the beginning at one of those test screens, and maybe they thought, okay, we shouldn't put it there, because that's not how it starts. I know you guys want me to tell you, but he talks about Cyborg having the vision when he jacks into the Kryptonian ship, the Genesis system. We know about that because we already confirmed that. Whedon tried to add bad jokes, teenage sexual humor, and then he talks about how James Wan was showing Snyder versions against Warner Brothers' wishes. And yeah, that part, I mean, it sounds like he was constantly going back to Snyder. Constantly. From what I heard, it wasn't like that. And I think he was over embellishing a little bit. What I heard is he showed Snyder early versions of the film. As far as I know, it was only one early version. And then Snyder, I think, maybe gave some notes, but most of all, he said, good job, James. Warner Brothers wanted Arthur to be more quippy, more Iron Man, Tony Starkish, which I guess that's what some of the reshoots was, to add a little bit more jokey jokes, which it wasn't like too overbearing. Yeah, they don't all work. I actually watched it again last night, guys. Yeah, I actually finally saw it again. And I was watching it, I'm going, this is a really good movie. But yeah, there's some times where I was going, yeah, that doesn't work, and that doesn't work. Some of the jokes don't work, but some of them are actually okay, and they're playful, and they're, kind of fits the character a little bit. Juan apparently kept fighting against too much Black Manta. He wanted to save him more for the sequel, but Warner Brothers and the guy with the ball cap, Mr. Jeff Johns, was going, no, we want to keep Manta, we want to keep this and keep that. And basically what I took from this podcast as well is, I guess when it comes to Warner Brothers definitely did not have full faith in the character, but they thought, okay, with the test groups and this, that, and this, maybe we have something here. But when it came to having a sequel, they weren't confident. They weren't, and that's probably because of Justice League and stuff like that. So they just wanted to have everything possible in this movie. That's why there is so much in the first Aquaman movie. If they had faith, we probably wouldn't have saw everything that we saw, because, my God, when you think about it, and I'm watching it again, I'm going, there's a lot of shit in this movie. He talks about Jeff Johns and Toby Emmerich. Like, Toby Emmerich and Jeff Johns were, like, total just, like, the dynamic duo they were thinking they were. So I think that's where a lot of the shit went down with everything. That sounds to me like it's right. He says he sat in on meetings, so my source wouldn't have known a lot of that, but still my source was like, fuck Jeff Johns. Also, I forgot to mention in the history lesson, apparently there was going to be multiple Green Lanterns that might have been cut, not just, what's-his-nuts, that we saw actually in the final cut, but it was supposed to be like multiple ones, so that way they could start paving the way for a new Green Lantern movie. But like I said, people were walking out wanting more of a Flash movie than anything, probably because, he was very likable. He was very much us in that movie, and I'm sure he was more like us in Snyder's version. The fact that, he's got these powers, he's a young dude, he's heard about these legends and these mythical fucking people, And he was never, he didn't have, he knew he could do his thing, but can he live up to Aquaman and Wonder Woman and even Batman? He talks about how the team was going to build throughout the Justice League movies. It wasn't going to be just bam right there so quickly. And yeah, I could see that because Snyder likes to slow burn. He likes to take his time. He likes to peel the onion, give us, show the layers, build it up and everything. And it's just, Warner Brothers was just like, no. We want premature ejaculation. Hall of Justice always meant to be Wayne Manor. They were going to touch bases on that. It wasn't just going to be like a scene at the end with Lois talking the montage and everything. No, it was just going to be built up to that. Apparently Jeff Johns squashed all that, which I'm going, this is true. Fucking God, man, you write comic books. It's so comic booky. Come on. I don't know. I guess maybe he just didn't like the fact that Wayne, I don't know. There was actually a scene in Aquaman, apparently, that was too gory to fit the PG-13 rating, where there was a prison break sequence when Arthur was captured, at first, he had the thing around his neck. He was with chains. There was a prison break scene, and apparently some really bad piranhas, chomped up on somebody. So there's a bunch of, there's blood, and they had to cut it out because he got to make it not that dark. Apparently also too, Juan wanted he wanted a poster of the trench to be like an actual movie poster, but to have the reverse effect, because you know how Jaws is looking up, the Jaws poster, he wanted that whole thing be going downwards to be like the opposite of that. And to me, that's fucking cool, but at the same time, yeah, I can understand the marketing, trying to market Aquaman. That'd be difficult. It'd just be nice if there's a poster. Maybe there is a poster out there that he has for that. That'd be cool. Test screenings for Shazam, people were disappointing it wasn't Aquaman. So test screenings were actually pretty positive with Aquaman. And he also talks about how, he was going to do a test screening for Shazam, and people were literally thinking it was Aquaman. And when he told people it was Shazam, they really went like, what, really? Because nobody knows who Shazam is. But apparently they did still enjoy it, so it's fine. And it was more, he also talks about how Aquaman was more Johnson Juan. I don't know. That's not what I heard, and that might be over-embellishing a little bit. If that was the case, Juan would definitely not be doing the sequel, for sure, because he's very meticulous about his stuff. He's a perfectionist, and I wouldn't see him wanting to do the sequel if he wanted to do all that again. And then it said Flashpoint was still going forward. That's why that newspaper clipping that we saw in the mid-credit scene with Manta, that's why they put that in there. So there you go, guys. That was just all the notes I really had. Take it with a huge grain of salt with everything. The guy seemed like he was knowing what he's talking about. Some of it might have been over-embellishing, and then I think some people were taking his words a little out of context and kind of blowing him up a little bit. So as far as I know, a lot of it's pretty legit. So I don't know. Take it or leave it, guys. That's my 2 cents. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself, because this is a long video now. Let me know your thoughts about it down below. What do you think about all it? Hit that like, thumbs up button if you'd be so kind. Subscribe to my channel. Visit filmjunkie.com for all my content. And, of course, visit the closet for shirts and stickers. You can get a Metalhead shirt. I got it in there. And then, of course, the social media stuff right over there. All right, guys? Talk to you later.